Hello, my name is Jacob Gerlach. I'm a senior in biomedical engineering at NC State, and I did my ECE505 research project on the use of artificial intelligence in brain-computer interfaces. In this presentation, I'll be sharing what I've learned. First, a little background. A brain-computer interface, or brain-machine interface, is a system that records and analyzes brain activity and translates this information into commands that can be understood by an output device. To be defined as a brain-computer interface, a device must integrate signals from the central nervous system, as opposed to afferent pathways such as peripheral nerves and muscles. That is to say that a voice or muscle-activated system is not a brain-computer interface, as these systems use the brain's normal output pathways as an intermediary between the central nervous system and the output device. Additionally, a simple EEG is also not a brain-computer interface, because to be a brain-computer interface, a system must generate an output capable of acting on a user's environment. An EEG will only measure brain activity. In the example you see on the screen, an electrode array interfaces the brain and computer. When the user imagines writing the word hello with his hand, these electrical signals are translated to the computer to instruct it to type the word hello. This effectively enables the user to control the computer with only their thoughts, or more accurately, with only the electrical activity happening within the brain. What is artificial intelligence? In general terms, artificial intelligence is the process of employing computer systems to perform a task that would normally require human intervention. This task can range from as simple as differentiating cats from dogs given a set of images, or as complex as decoding human brain signals. While the differences between cats and dogs, such as face structure, size, and ear shape, are easily apparent to humans, determining what someone is thinking from their EEG alone seems impossible. For example, if I look at the image on the right-hand side, I glean no information about the state of the individual. I just see a bunch of squiggly lines. And herein lies the beauty of AI. A computer can take a number of quantitative features from this data, which appears to be as squiggly lines, such as amplitudes, pulse durations, stimulation frequencies, and electrical properties of the neural tissue. From example data sets, the computer can develop a multidimensional fit that can be used to evaluate new data. This allows the computer to recognize patterns that are impossible to perceive with only the naked eye. Though AI is often thrown around as a magic buzzword, in reality, its power is based entirely on curve fitting and inference on previous collected data. AI is developed using a process called machine learning. I'd like to shift gears slightly to give you an idea of how this process works. So first, a large example data set is curated. This is usually referred to as the training data. Here's an example data set of popular hip-hop songs from Spotify. As you can see, 8 features: artist name, track name, energy, key, loudness, tempo, duration, and a relative popularity ranking are present. Parameters of a machine learning algorithm can be optimized to find an output Y given a set of parameters X. In this case, we want an algorithm to predict a song's popularity performance given the qualities of the song. So we feed it in properties of the song and compare its predicted popularity with the actual popularity, and we adjust the weights of the model accordingly using this performance metric. Usually a model will be trained on tens of thousands of examples, as larger training sets allow the model more chances to recognize patterns and generalize to new data points. Once a model is trained, it simply consists of a set of weights associated with a particular model structure, and this trained model actually has a very small data footprint, as it's really just a mathematical function. Now that we've trained the model can be exposed to a newly released song where the popularity is unknown. Unlike the training process, fitting the model is rapid, and a prediction is quickly spit out since we are merely fitting X to our equation. We must note that this prediction is not a certainty and is based on probabilities generated from trends seen only in the training data set. The goal of a computational model can be broken down into achieving one of two tasks: classification or regression. A classification task requires an algorithm that can draw a boundary to separate data into bins based on where it lies in a feature space. The bin that a point falls into is the output prediction. Feature space refers to a hyperplane with dimensions equal to the number of features or inputs in the data. By hyperplane, I'm referring to a multidimensional space. We cannot visualize a 100-dimension space. However, it's possible for 100 different features to intersect and form relationships with each other. In the example seen on the left, a 2-dimensional feature space is observed. We could say that the x-axis refers to a student's effort in a class and that the y-axis represents a student's final grade. A blue X would represent a satisfied student, while a red O would represent an unsatisfied student. If a student puts a lot of effort into a class, he would likely only be satisfied with a higher grade. Consequently, a student who puts minimal effort into a class can likely expect a lower grade. Based on the data, we can draw a boundary between the points and predict whether a new student will be satisfied given their effort and grade. Not every data point will need to fall into the correct bin, and the goal is to optimize the distribution while maintaining a simple model that can generalize. This is a classification task because the student is either satisfied or unsatisfied, but we're not associating a quantifiable value with satisfaction. More specifically, this is a binary classification task since there's only two outcomes. But we can also have a classification task with several possible outcomes. In the example seen on the right, a one-dimensional feature space is observed, with the x-axis corresponding to the input feature and the y-axis corresponding to the output. This is a simple nonlinear regression model that we've all likely had experience with before. This model outputs continuous values with numerical meaning. For any x value that I input, there will be a y value found on the curve. Again, it would be possible for this function to connect every single example point. However, this is referred to as overfitting, and it would result in poor generalization to new data, as we would be attempting to extract meaning from noise and other random variations. Finally, I'd like to review time series data. A parameter or set of parameters that are measured and recorded at particular time steps are referred to as time series or time stamped. While this data can appear continuous with small enough time steps, measurements are made every millisecond, making the data actually discrete. These discrete samples seen on the right is what would actually be fed into a computational model. Time series algorithms will take advantage of trends in data rather than only looking at the features of a specific data point. A recurrent neural network is a common example of a time series algorithm. The details of this algorithm are beyond the scope of this presentation, but in essence, previous predictions or model outputs are fed back in along with the next set of inputs. This allows the model to develop a dependency on what was previously inputted, as opposed to every data point being irrespective of one another. Details of this algorithm, such as how to weigh previous time steps, can be tweaked, but in simple terms, the predictions from one time step become part of the set of inputs for the next time step. This transferring of information between time steps allows for the model to recognize trends in the data. Now that we understand the basics of machine learning and time series modeling, we can apply these concepts to brain-computer interfaces. Research published in 2017 describes a brain-computer interface that allows 2D computer cursor control in a paralyzed patient. A 96-channel silicon microelectrode array was implanted into the area of the motor cortex, which is responsible for hand movement. Each channel was sampled 30,000 times per second, and a common noise was removed by subtracting the mean signal across all neural channels within the electrode array. A 0.3 to 0.7 kHz bandpass filter was applied to each channel to split the signal into action potential spikes and high-frequency local field potential bands, which are transient electrical signals generated by summed activity of cells. Essentially, this yielded two different signals. A Kalman filter was used for continuous two-dimensional cursor control. This is an example of a time series algorithm, which was used to determine the direction and velocity of the cursor from signal properties. A hidden Markov model was used for binary classification of click state. Either the participant intended to click or not, and this was captured by a probability with a threshold of 0.5. If the predicted output exceeded the 50% probability threshold, the mouse was clicked. The hidden Markov model is also a time series algorithm. Rather than relying on single point classifications, the model uses a sliding window to reduce the impact of noise on the classification task. Both algorithms were optimized or trained on a dataset specific for each patient, and the methods used to optimize the model parameters varied by individual case. Time series regression was used to output the velocity and direction of the cursor using the Kalman algorithm, and time series classification was used to output the click state every millisecond. The local field potential band was used to train the movement algorithm, while the action potential spike band was used to train the click classification algorithm. Signal properties of the local field potential bands, such as amplitude and frequency, were used to estimate the velocity and direction of the cursor, while spike presence was used to classify a click. Here you can observe the device at work. The device allowed paralyzed patients to type using a cursor at 32 letters per minute and enabled the use of native computer applications. The patients were instructed to try to move their hand as if they were operating a mouse, and you can even see slight movements in the patient's right hand. Similar methods used for cursor control can be used to control a prosthetic arm with 4 degrees of motion and a gripper. However, a new layer of difficulty is added with this problem, as subjects must now interact with actual objects rather than just an on-screen cursor. With no feedback to the CNS from the prosthetic arm, this can be very challenging, as the subject would have no idea of the grip strength being applied. This brings us to the development of bidirectional BCIs. Peripheral nerves are divided into afferent and efferent nerves. Efferent nerves carry signals away from the body, allowing us to control muscles. We have explored the use of brain-computer interface to carry out tasks of the efferent neurons. However, afferent nerves are necessary for refining movements through feedback. Somatosensory feedback in the brain is what gives us the perception of touch. Mechanoreceptive afferent signals convey information about location and forces of contact when we grasp objects. Loss of these signals greatly impairs the ability for an individual to coordinate and plan movements. BCIs aim to solve this problem not only by recording neural activity, but also by stimulating neurons by mapping pressure exertion on a prosthetic device to stimulation pulse magnitude within the brain. Studies have shown that the link between pressure exertion on objects by a prosthesis and appropriate microstimulation pulses can be achieved more efficiently with aid from AI, as it can allow for nonlinear modeling. BCI research has been dominated by the use of linear classifiers due to the fact that nonlinear classifiers are more complex, including more tuning parameters. A 2016 study demonstrated the use of random forest algorithms for nonlinear modeling. Random forest is a classification algorithm consisting of many decision trees. Decision trees are simple to interpret, however they have high variance and thus easily overfit to training data. Random forest utilizes multiple decision trees to achieve bagging, which is short for bootstrap aggregating, which mitigates the variance problem. With representative training data, the mapping between prosthesis pressure exertion and intracortical microstimulation may be learned to create a model for somatosensation. With the previous examples, hyperparameters or features of the model, such as sliding window size and rate of model optimization, were chosen prior to training. This method requires extensive domain knowledge in addition to trial and error. Only after these hyperparameters are selected does the model optimize to its internal parameters to the dataset. Research published in 2015 explored the use of machine learning for classification of motor signals using a second algorithm to optimize hyperparameters that are typically declared explicitly. Training and test data was sourced from the Berlin BCI4 competition dataset. A deep neural network was used. This is a model which uses several layers of nodes with trainable weights. Time series signals from multiple electrodes placed at different distances in the brain serve as inputs, allowing the first layer of the neural net to feature encode both temporal and spatial data. A classification is made for each channel on the electrode array. A genetic algorithm was used to accelerate model optimization. Genetic algorithms are optimization tactics inspired by natural selection that utilize stochastic parameter searching. In this study, it was used to optimize hyperparameters such as neural net node and layer number during the training loop. The genetic algorithm can make modifications to the neural net structure during training while still allowing for backpropagation, which is the method for training feed-forward neural networks to occur. To simplify things, the genetic algorithm can sort of be thought of as a wrapper around the neural net. The method used in this study performed well relative to the documented results of the BCI competition. Additionally, benefits of this strategy were more pronounced with smaller training sets, which are traditionally much harder to train models with. The main benefit of this strategy is that it would allow for alternative to explicit feature extraction and could generalize to various BCI tasks with minimal human intervention. In conclusion, the development of AI and computer deep learning may provide a way to decode neural signals by extracting features that are not directly apparent and at extremely fast speeds. This seems especially fitting given that some of the most popular machine learning algorithms were derived from models of the brain.